Have you noticed how much more expensive it is to book Uber, Lyft, or Airbnb lately? The prices for Uber and Lyft are up 40% versus last year. Bird is up 180%, and Airbnb is up 35%. And it's not just because we're all out of lockdowns and moving around again. The real reason behind all of this is a much bigger deal. So today I want to go over what's actually happening, why this is happening, but also how you can find cheaper alternatives and how you can actually make money off this price increase. Alright, before we talk about how to actually solve this problem with the price increases and maybe flip it in your favor, let me explain what's really happening, because it's easy to blame all of this on the end of the curfews and the lockdowns, the fact that we're all moving around and kind of increasing the demand for these services. That's only part of the problem. The bigger part of the problem is the fact that there's a complete shift in behavior on behalf of these companies and the financial backers. Because this is really what many people call the end of the golden era of the millennial lifestyle subsidy. And let's not make fun of the millennials here, because we all took part in this, right? But what they call the millennial lifestyle subsidy is simply the fact that for the last 8 to 10 years, venture capital firms that are typically funding all of these startup companies, the Ubers, the Lyfts, the Airbnbs, they're all funded by venture capital in Silicon Valley. They effectively subsidized and underwrote many of the activities that you and I take for granted, that, all these companies that we use on a daily basis, all of the discounts that we took advantage of over the last several years. This was really funded by the venture capital firms. When you look at Uber, for example, Uber took $20 billion in investment before their IPO, and a lot of this money went out in incentives to acquire new customers and acquire drivers. When you think back to 2015, Uber was spending $1 million a week in incentives just in San Francisco alone. Think back to companies like MoviePass. MoviePass was $9.95 for all the movies you can watch in a month. That obviously didn't last very long. They went down, they went bankrupt. We collectively filled graveyards with door delivery apps that didn't have enough funding to make it through and become big enough and gain that critical size. Think about companies like Maple, Sprig, Spoonrocket, or Munchery. Like these are names that not many people even remember at this point. And if you haven't noticed all of these price increases, let me show you a couple of tweets that went viral over the last couple of months. This first tweet here is from a VP at Ford that was on a trip in New York and going back to the airport from Manhattan to JFK. He spent $250 on his Uber ride because he couldn't find a yellow cab, and this is the cheapest price that he found for a ride to the airport. This is as much as he spent on the flight from New York back to San Francisco. This other tweet shows that Airbnb has increased prices so much that people suddenly start complaining about paying $500 for a room. Why not go back to the hotel for $300 and have all the amenities around, room service, pool, and all of that stuff? And of course, the most glaring example, when you think about it, is the Bird scooters. Now, I personally actually never use the Bird scooters, but I have many friends that use them all the time. And back in 2019, Bird was shelling out $9.66 for each $10 they took in. So, imagine a sandwich stand that is selling sandwiches and you pay them $10 for a sandwich, where the ingredients for the sandwich are costing them $19.66. So this is how much money Bird was losing. And of course, the pandemic put a stop to all of this. Much more discipline was suddenly required for all of these companies that really, for the last 18 months, had to completely change behavior and survive, stop incentivizing people and shelling out these free discounts to everybody. So now Bird is actually profitable. But when you think about it, why is this really happening, right? It's happening simply because a lot of these companies are now public and they have demands from investors to finally turn profits after 8 or 10 years of being really subsidized by VC capital. So that's why all of these price increases are happening all around you. The question now, of course, is how to avoid these price increases and how to fight back in a way. And the biggest amount of complaints I hear from people are from about Lyft and Uber. For a lot of people, this is something we use on a daily basis. 40% increase is certainly something we'll all feel. And so I want to show you a few creative ways and a few alternatives that you can use. And so the first one is a company called Obi. Obi used to be called Bellhop. They renamed themselves to Obi a few months ago in March 2021. But Obi is effectively a price comparison engine, just like Expedia, that compares all the companies next to each other and shows you the best available price. So they compare the prices for Lyft, for Uber, for Via, for regular taxis and black car companies, and they show you the best price at that point in time. Very often they show better prices than what you typically get on the Uber or Lyft app. So this is certainly something you should give a try. They have 11 million drivers in their network. So this is a company that's growing and that is out there that kind of, again, compares the prices and shows you the best alternative at that point. The other one is called Drivers Cooperative. This is only in New York. It's drivers owned, run by the drivers. What I like about this company is that you're effectively, more of the money that you pay for your ride goes to the drivers. In the case of Lyft or Uber, the company takes up to 40% of what you actually spend on your ride. So this has more of a ESG content, more kind of a socially responsible content, where effectively what you're paying for your ride, because after all, you are driven by a private driver around town, more of that money goes to the drivers. So Drivers Cooperative in New York, again, if you live in New York, give it a go, because this, to me, appeals on a more kind of a socially responsible level. But look, when I used to live in New York, the fastest way to move around town for me was the subway. Public transportation is amazing, and I understand that during COVID times, or even after COVID, as we emerge from COVID, for a lot of people, this is a bit of a difficult solution. So why not give a try to those city bikes? Start using a bicycle around. Keeps you fit, but also saves you a lot of money that you can otherwise spend on something else. Finally, the real question is there a way that we can all benefit somehow from all of these price increases? Although it sounds completely counterintuitive. But the truth is we can all benefit, because when you look at these companies from the stock market perspective, they all are becoming so much more disciplined. Right? When you look, for example, at Uber in the first quarter of 2020 lost $3 billion. This year in 2021, in the first quarter, they lost 108 million. 108 million versus $3 billion. So they are becoming so much more disciplined, and they will become profitable. Same with Lyft, same with Airbnb. These companies will become more disciplined as they mature, because when you think about these industries, they will be dominated by a few winner-take-all kind of companies. And Uber and Lyft are here to stay, because think about the change in lifestyle and this whole shift, right? We all love the fact that we can look at the phone, follow the car as it comes to you when you call it, and then follow yourself on the map as you are being driven to your destination. So all of these companies are here to stay. That the whole mobility value chain is completely shifting, right? We're all in the early innings when it comes to Lyft and Uber specifically. This is just the very beginning, because we have autonomous driving. All of these fleets are going to become completely different over time. The way we think about cars and car ownership will be completely different. And I want to show you here this Bloomberg page for Uber specifically here. So when you look at Uber, this page shows you the Wall Street analyst community, all the analyst houses, the Wall Street banks that are following Uber, writing reports, analyzing the numbers. Most of these showed an outperform or a buy rating with targets somewhere between $70 and $80, right? From currently it's trading at 50, 51. So this is a 40% upside. So all this to say that if you can beat them, why not join them? Why not become investors in these companies that are increasing prices, and you see that they are here to stay? Because effectively, as ironic as it is, they killed many taxi businesses and became the dominant player in the market of the way of how we move left and right. All right, so much for a quick analysis on the price increases we have been seeing all around us. A few silver linings, hopefully a few creative solutions. I would love to hear your solutions and how you've dealt with the fact that everything seems to be a bit more expensive. So any creative solutions that you have found, that you're using on a daily basis, leave me a comment below. But thanks for hanging out today. Make sure you give a like to the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet, and I'll see you in a few days.